Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. All about humanity, so this right here for everyone. Uplift, amplify, empower everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud.
On this episode of the Sumud podcast, we uplift, empower, and amplify Palestinian American attorney and author Ali Awad. Known as the CEO lawyer, he is the proud son of Palestinian parents who immigrated to the U.S., not just in search of a better life, but also to establish a strong foundation of support for the Palestinian and Muslim communities. At age 24, Ali made history as one of the youngest graduates to earn both a law degree and an MBA in the state of Georgia. He went on to start his own law firm from the trunk of his car and is now a Forbes magazine featured attorney leading the fastest growing law firm in America, possibly number one, I'll ask you, Ali. But guess what? Despite the threats to his business and the attacks he's faced, Ali has courageously and unapologetically stood up for Palestine. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you watch or listen and follow us on social media, either at Sumud Pod or at Sumud Podcast. As an announcement here, because Ali is the one who convinced me to do it, we have a new TikTok account at Sumud Podcast. So that's live, Ali. I wanted to make sure you knew that right away, right off the bat.
Let's go. Good job, man.
Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, man. Can't complain. Life is better than I deserve.
So listen, when I met you at the ADC conference or ArabCon, I told you a lot of people wanted me to interview you, but they wanted me to go deeper. They want to know how Palestine influenced you. They wanted to know where you started. They have a general understanding. They know you're very successful. MashaAllah, you've done a lot of great work, but they want to know what makes you tick and sort of where you came from. So the first question I'm really going to ask you is, when did you first know you're a Palestinian?
When did I first know that I was a Palestinian? Both of my parents are Palestinian. We've been brought up as Muslim household, Palestinian, but it was never really a sense of pride in the Palestinian identity as young kids, because there weren't other Palestinians around us. We grew up in Dalton, Georgia, so it was majority Mexican town, and the few Muslim families that were there were either Pakistani or there were a lot of Egyptians in Dalton too, in the carpet mill industry. And, you know, the doctors were always Syrian, but there weren't too many Palestinians. Are you Syrian, by the way?
No, I'm Palestinian.
Palestinian. Okay,
you didn't know that? I'm crushed. You didn't know that?
No, because you smiled when I said Syrians were doctors. And you're like, I was like, oh, maybe he's got some. My wife is Syrian, so like, I don't see those boundaries anymore. Like, you know how old school Palestinians are like, oh, well, if you're only from this specific village, we only marry from here. Bro, that stuff is stupid when you're getting absolutely decimated. But, you know, to answer your question, I never really felt a prideful Palestinian identity until I was maybe in college. But before that, it was just being a proud Muslim. It didn't really matter that I was Palestinian. I just knew that I was different. And, you know, as you become aware of other people and you grow up and you start networking and connecting, you realize, well, there's more Palestinians. And a lot of them are super, super proud Palestinians. And I think that just kind of became something for me, you know, while I was in college, because I didn't have any other Palestinians around me. It was more just a Muslim identity first. And that's why I always, you know, present myself as Muslim first and Palestinian second, because it's the religion that matters more than the culture.
For sure. And your parents both immigrated from Palestine.
That's right.
I got to ask, why pick Dalton, Georgia?
Because my dad is a brilliant engineer. And he went to Georgia Tech, the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, graduated with his master's degree in mechanical engineering as one of the top students. And he was highly sought after from a lot of these manufacturing plants. So ended up in Dalton, Georgia, because his specific skill set for mechanical engineering was not something that was as available 100 miles away from the, you know, Georgia Tech College. So he designed a lot of the carpet mill manufacturing machines that were in Dalton, Georgia in the 80s and 90s. And so that's how we ended up there. I guess it was the best opportunity for work.
But you grew up with a lot of struggle, obviously. If I read correctly, you had to get school lunches for free as part of the program, so with the schooling system, I think, and other government support. If I also understood correctly, you didn't have insurance. I heard you had a foot injury as well at some point.
I mean, you know, I wasn't shy about free lunches. I thought anyone who was paying for lunch was stupid. So it's like we got free lunches. I'm not ashamed of getting, like, why would you pay for something that's free? But yeah, very much I would say a poor upbringing in terms of financial capabilities, not in terms of our mindset. And alhamdulillah, my dad gave us everything that we wanted in terms of survivalist skills. But there was one car for the entire family, and if it breaks down, we're not going anywhere. As a young kid, I would help my family work in the mechanic shop to save up money to pay for bills and things like that. My dad, who was a business person, loved getting into different businesses, wasn't too financially astute, and especially when it came to other Arabs taking advantage of him. And that's a deeper conversation in terms of the generational lack of education. I think previous generations of Arabs and Muslims that came to America, 60s, 70s, 80s, they only knew the immigrants that they hung around. And so that was the entire size of your economy, because they weren't really working with other people outside of that economy, and they were scared of doing anything to potentially take advantage of someone else. So they ended up just kind of taking advantage of each other. And it's a stain on our culture, because almost every single Palestinian that I know has experienced some sort of theft, betrayal, being taken advantage of, and it's usually from another Arab or another Muslim. And that happened to my dad multiple times. And even though sometimes I'll blame him on his financial, mismanagement, but it was really because he was very trusting and he had a very big heart, and he didn't take advantage of other people. Other people took advantage of him, but his children, his sons specifically, were the ones that had to bear the brunt of it. Because if he goes into a bad business deal and he's got 4 boys that can work in the mechanic shop every single day, Monday through Sunday, and every dollar that they make goes back to repaying those debts, it's us that pay for it, the boys. So yeah, I mean, it was a unique upbringing, because I always say we have a 7-figure work ethic with a 3-figure budget,
Yeah.
Because all the money that we made just seemed to dissipate. And my dad would always send money back to Palestine. He'd always take care of his sisters. My dad's father passed away when he was 24, I believe. It was 1984. No, he was 27. And he took it upon himself to be the family leader, like the leader of the Awad household. The oldest son takes care of all of his siblings, bring them over to the U.S. one by one. They tend to rely on him. He gets them established, gets them married, gets them in college, gets their houses set up. And that never really changed. Even as my dad got married and started his own family, his priority was his siblings and his mom, who now lost her husband. And she also wasn't really the most educated. She got married when she was 14. My grandma did. Went straight into making babies. It was a baby making factory. They had 11 of them. So, it's a huge difference from 2 generations ago, what Palestinians were enduring to the lifestyle that I live now, in terms of the opportunities, the financial awareness and responsibility, the people, the connections, the access to education. It's just a huge, huge difference, And so I have that chip on my shoulder that, yeah, we grew up in the mud and came from the mud, but I don't forget where I came from.
So I want to talk about your dad a little bit more, but I got to ask you, what do you think the issue is within our community, the Palestinian community specifically, of not doing a good job of supporting each other? Because obviously it's an easy argument to make. We are in this situation in part because we haven't been so united in the past.
I think we have to undo the cultural indoctrination that we don't like working with each other, that Arabs don't like to work with other Arabs, that Muslims are going to take advantage of other Muslims. This is old culture. And that's when you prioritize culture over religion, It's like, oh, I could take advantage of him, we could take his money. That stuff is old, man. We don't do that anymore. We uplift each other, we help each other. And I think it's the lack of religiosity really that leads to that. I think before we can address the cultural generational changes, we need to get back to Fajr prayer at the masjid. We need to spend more time in the masjid. Every major blessing in my life was directly tied to my religion, my closeness to Allah, my spending time in the masjid, local masjid, wherever it is. So I think it's religiosity over everything else.
So I think that's a message for the Muslim community as well, because in many cases we're divided there too. So I mean, you see what's happening in Palestine. Some Muslim majority countries are not supporting us. So you're suggesting we're just not going back to the basics.
I think when you live in a your survivalist mentality, where your instinct is just, let me make it through the end of the day. Let me make sure that my kids have something to eat. And it's not a we're all in this together type thing. It's every man for himself type thing. I think you have no choice but to do whatever it takes to help yourself and help your family get out of your current predicament. I think it's different when you're all living in the same town, the same country. Like in Gaza right now, I feel like there's way more people helping each other than there are taking advantage of each other. Even though that I'm sure it still exists. I'm sure there's still people that will take the opportunity, even in the worst, most dire circumstances, to take money from other people. I think it's just cultural lack of education, and it's misguided and misconstrued anger. Like, we should be taking out that anger on the people that put us in the situation, not each other. And with that being said, I adopt the mentality that there's a likelihood I'm going to get ripped off. Someone is going to take advantage of me, but I would rather it be an Arab or a Muslim, so at least they benefit.
Yeah.
And I think if we adopt that mentality, I think we'll be better off.
I want to go back to your father and your mother, if that's okay, to an extent. You talk about money a lot, and I'm sure you received some criticism for talking about money. And I actually have heard some of that criticism myself, but something triggered for me that was a little bit different. If I'm going to be honest with you, when you're on stage at ArabCon, you said money is a tool. It is not the end game. It is a tool. And I think that's what you were sort of trying to educate folks on. In saying that, what did you learn from your father growing up? Obviously, you didn't have a lot. You were always working hard. Everybody had a job to do. What are the main things you took away from your father and your mother too?
So to take it back just a couple of steps, it's not taboo to talk about money. If you don't have it, that's your problem. And you should listen to people that have it, so maybe you can learn something. And if you think the problem is the person that's talking about money that has an abundance of it, then clearly you have some serious issues with your finances. Because the problem is you. It's not the people. That's not everyone around you. The problem is you. I think that people don't want to take accountability for their financial situation. I think most people, and I will specifically talk to young men that are able-bodied, that are in the United States. There is absolutely no reason for you to be broke. There's no reason for you to rely on your parents to pay for anything in your life. It should be the other way around. Now, problems happen. There's illnesses, there's legitimate mental concerns, there's legitimate catastrophes that happen. I'm not talking about those situations. May Allah make it easy on everyone. But what I am saying is, if you are in the United States, you are able-bodied, you're still under the age of 40, and you don't have any major responsibilities that are going to hold you down, it's only your fault if you're broke. I don't know why that's a weird statement to make. I don't know why people have a problem with that. And yeah, I do talk about money a lot because I think we don't talk about it enough. I'm very disappointed with the lack of ambition in the Arab and Muslim communities. And what I've discovered is the wealthier people get, especially in this community, they pull themselves away from the rest of the community because now they think they're a target, which rightfully so. You think people are going to come after what you got. But dude, what you got is your education. What you got is in your brain. No one can take that away from you. So you're more concerned that someone might ask you for money than the potential massive benefit of inspiring and motivating the masses by educating them. The wealthy people don't like to talk much, man. And it's very disappointing. And I found myself becoming that person. Why would I leave the comfort of my own home if the business is doing well? Why would I do these events? Why? Because I genuinely believe I have a higher purpose of educating and uplifting my community. My goal is simply to elevate the status of Muslims in America. That's my goal. And I can do that so much better if I teach people how to build financial security and stability. And if that means I have to be in your face and show you that you're broke and you're messing up and you don't know what you're doing, so be it. The net positive is still higher. And this is just who I am right now. I think 10 years from now, probably going to be a little bit cleaner around the edges. Probably not going to be as aggressive in your face. But you should have seen me 5 years ago. Can't tell me nothing. You know? And I'm being honest, man. I don't think we talk about money enough. I don't think we have enough of it because we clearly don't have the influence and power that we thought we had. And money is the reason that all these things are happening. The military industrial complex is the reason why this is happening. The Zionist regime that controls all of the entertainment, all of the news outlets, every major financial institution, private equity, banks, mortgages, every one of those is Zionist controlled. And it's all driven by money. And you don't want to talk about it? Okay, then shut up and be broke. And if you have a problem with me, go rub your 2 nickels together in the corner. But what I'm going to show you is that there's a better way to live and there's a better way to make money. And maybe, just maybe, there's someone out there that's going to get motivated and inspired and they're going to make a difference. And putting money in the hands of good people is always a net positive. If you're a good person, money will amplify it. If you're a bad person, money will amplify it. If we're not talking about money, you're losing the opportunity for amplification. Not enough people talk about it.
So I think what people will take it as, and this is why I want to be very clear, they'll take it as bragging or showing off. The message that I get from you, and I can only speak for myself, right, is using money as a means to affect change or to create change versus using money just to show off to accumulate wealth. I think those are 2 disparate ideas, if you will, or approaches. And I think for you, it's about, hey, look, everybody, if we want to make a change, and we're going to talk about the hospital you want to build later, inshallah, as well, you got to have the money to do that. Is that a fair assessment?
Here's the thing, man. I'm in a business where my success is directly correlated with the financial success of my clients. I work on commission. The money I make is directly related to how much money my clients make. So me advertising my financial success is actually the success of my clients, is actually the success of my company. This wouldn't work as well if you're a medical doctor. It doesn't really have the same connection because why is the doctor focused on money? I'm a personal injury lawyer. I work on commission. My entire business is about money. And by the way, I think you should just have some context here. In my world of personal injury, it's very common to show big checks, big settlements, big money. This is the world that we live in. And when you take this type of person who is dominating in this world and puts them in a different environment, everyone sees it as bragging. So it's just context. You probably see it as bragging. I see it as motivational. I see it as inspirational. And by the way, I respect people's opinions on seeing it as bragging. I know that it will be more palatable if I did it a different way, you know? But I would rather people know that I exist and know that there is someone there, even if the first interaction that you get is negative, because inshallah, over time, you're going to realize this person's actually a decent person. Maybe the first interaction that I saw wasn't what I wanted to see, but you'll see me again. And your perception is going to change. And very rarely do people see me for the first time and absolutely fall in love with me. I'm an acquired taste. You know, if you don't love me, acquire some taste. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But that's the perspective. Is it in the world that I live in, this is how we market. This is how we advertise. And it doesn't fit in the other world, you know? But I know there was someone in the audience that was motivated. And I know there was someone that took it away and said, you know what? I like what's happening here. And I bet you not a single wealthy person was the one that had anything negative to say, because wealthy people understand that money is attracted by attention. And when you take the attention of people, it attracts more. And when I donate more and I expand more and I give more, it results in more.
I want to talk about your father, but I was going to ask you this later. There is an evolution, though, for you and experience, because you said earlier that when you get older, you may become a little bit softer, less rough around the edges. But in one of your interviews, I think somebody asked you what your greatest success was. And your answer was, my wife, she saved my life. I was going down a path of destruction mentally in terms of arrogance and ignorance and money hunger, and she showed me a different way. So is this a different Ali now that we're seeing from 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think I'm not as money hungry, even remotely close to being as money hungry. I'm more hungry for the people around me to have money than I am for myself. And sometimes you need to give people a wake-up call that your current financial situation is not good. You know what I did all day today?
Mm-mm.
It's the end of the quarter, and we are trying to come up with new goals and quarterly goals for the company. So alhamdulillah, I have like 120 team members, and every department head has the team that they are managing. All day today, we were figuring out how to incentivize and motivate the team members so that all of them can get really big bonuses for the end of the quarter. And we basically reverse engineer whatever their KPIs are that they're currently doing every week for 13 weeks. If they hit this number consistently, we're going to give them a really, really big bonus. And what's happening is I'm spending time teaching my team and motivating them and inspiring them for them to make more money. Now, my life won't change at all if they add an extra $5 or $10 million at the end of the quarter. It's not going to make a difference in my life, but it'll make a drastic difference in theirs where you can add 20% of their income in one paycheck. The way that I communicate with my team is very different than how I communicate with the general public. It's different than how I advertise. It's different than how I talk with my family. But they get to see a different sort of more aggressive side of the passion that I have is for you. And why I don't need anymore. I don't. I would much rather just spend time with my wife and kids and enjoy the ride. But my kids are watching me. They want to see that I'm putting in the work. And I don't want to have people around me that aren't as ambitious and aren't as driven. I don't. And I think I would have loved to have someone in my life as a kid or as a teenager or even as a young adult that motivated me, inspired me, and showed me a different way to do things. And I think I represent now, I think if I were to say that I represent becoming successful in America in unconventional ways, I think that connects with a lot of people. I think most of us have an unconventional life. It's not the typical two parents growing up in a rural home, white picket fence, the dog and everything. We don't have that upbringing. Most of us don't. And I think people want to see an unconventional way. How it gets to you, you might not necessarily love it, but that's okay, because at least you know that I exist. And I think the net positive is still there. And to answer your question, a young person that's been money hungry his whole life, that has access to a lot of money now, all of a sudden, and is not married, with no kids, with no responsibility, is very tempted to do bad things. And I think the timing of it, I think just by the grace of God, that I was able to find my wife, start a family. And the first thing we did when we got married was I took my wife and my parents to Hajj. That's 3 months after we got married, right? As soon as we got back from the honeymoon. And dude, I'm not perfect, bro. I'm not. I know that I mess up. I know I'll say things and make people feel bad and regret things that I say. But I genuinely believe deep down in my heart that it's good. I believe I'm a good person. And I just want people around me to be successful. That's what I want. And I know that I can't do it by myself. I'd rather have 100, 200, 300 sharks around me and risk being bitten than just be around a bunch of minnows.
So talk about your father then and your upbringing that kind of led you to this sort of perspective on life. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you're working at a very young age. You were always an entrepreneur. You always had a spirit. I think you mentioned that you sold Dragon Ball Z characters, which is...
Yeah, I just bought a Dragon Ball Z character the other day. I was at a little thing. I saw it out and I was like, oh man, this is so relevant. Here's the guy.
Nice. Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is going to be a permanent fixture in the office.
And, I mean, you at that age, even you realized that knowledge is power, and you would cut out the URL and print them out, right? Of where the images were, cut out the URL so nobody would know where you were getting them, and then sell them, right?
Yeah, man. So let me provide some context. My dad didn't become a citizen until 2017. So I was 27 when my dad became a citizen. So my entire childhood, my entire adolescence, my entire college, law school experience, all of it, my dad was scared about getting deported, getting arrested, having any run-in with the law. So he had to be, and he's a very, very smart guy. Like one of the most brilliant engineer I've ever seen. And he's really good at math. You know, I think I take a lot after him too. Like it's a couple of things. One, being the middle child, I didn't get that much attention. But look, I'll say this, and my brothers might disagree, but I think most of them will. Everyone called me the smartest one in the family. And because I was the smart kid in the family, my dad didn't spend as much time with me, because usually your parents want to spend time with you on your homework and whatever. But in third grade, the teacher called my dad and said, hey, this kid does not belong in this third grade math class. We're going to put him in the fourth grade math class. And I went to the fourth grade math class, and the first day there was a game called Around the World, where they ask you a question and they say it's a math question, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, whatever it is. And you stand and you walk to the person next to their chair with the table, and both of you stand up, and whoever answers the question correctly has to sit down, and then the next person walks. And I was the first person in the room, so I have to go around the world with the entire class. And I went through the entire fourth grade class and beat every single one of them, because I was so much faster at math than every single one of them. 3 days after going into fourth grade math class, they ordered an algebra book from the middle school or the high school and said, look, we don't have any teacher to teach him. He's just going to sit in the back of the room and read the algebra book. And then whenever students have questions, he'll just come up and help them. And I think a lot of that was just a blessing from Allah, that I'm just fast at math, but also I knew that my dad liked it. And I knew that he appreciated it, and that he would give me his attention when I was successful in school. And it was only amplified when I was successful utilizing the math skills and knowledge when I applied that to finances. So when I started selling things online, I started my first eBay store in 1999. When I started drop shipping electronics, buying them from one website, selling them on another, my dad started paying attention to me, and he started respecting me. And I think that's what I really wanted. I just wanted my dad's love and affection. Wallahi, I think that's exactly what it is. And so that's way more driven than the love of money. It was really just misguided affection, right? I don't love the money. I love the feeling of being respected and appreciated, especially from my dad. So after a while, it's like, well, why am I doing all this? Like, okay, I'm good at making money. I understand business. And there's so many stories that I can give you, and I reference a lot of them in my book, The Laws of Victory. But I just wanted my dad's attention. And when I did something that made my dad happy, I just kept wanting to do it. And my dad really loved when I made money, because he would send that money to his family in Palestine. You see? He needed me to do that. So I had these skills my whole life. And now that there's an abundance of it, alhamdulillah, it's just a continuation of the same person that I've been my whole life. And I think that's it. I don't think it was ever being like loving money or being money hungry. I think it was wanting to make my dad happy and proud. And he was proud and respected me because I knew how to make money, because he needed it. Because I was good at the internet, I was good at selling, I was good at business, and he could take that money, and I never had a bank account. Every dollar that we would make from Eid or anything, he would take it and send it back to his family. Bro, at 13, I gave him $13,000 so that he could finish renovating our home, which by the time I got to college, he didn't even finish. And I never got to live in this home that we were renovating all this time. Like that was the upbringing, bro. So when you tell me that I go on stage and I'm a little bit offensive, it's like, I care about being palatable, and I care about not hurting other people's feelings. but not that much. Not that much, because I ate a lot of shit to get to this point. I really did. And my family did too. And with the decimation and annihilation of Palestinians right now, I just need your attention. And if I can get more people to think like me and act like me and have financial impact like me, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think there was even a powerful story you shared that your first family vacation was to Disney when Disney was okay. We're not allowed to go to Disney now, obviously, boycott.
Yeah, it was 2006.
2006. He went through these meetings for timeshare programs to watch
Yes.
videos, and that's how you got the. I mean, that's a hustle right there for him to think about doing it that way as well, right?
Well, yeah, man. My dad always liked maximizing value, you know? So, you know, like I think I sold my first car when I was 9 because we worked in a mechanic shop. We had a used car lot. But my dad never did anything haram. So he never took out loans from the bank, paid interest, never charged interest to people, never took advantage of people. We went to the masjid every single day for like 15 years. There's only 3 times that I ever missed Fajr or Aisha at the masjid. And I think that's kind of the foundation for me and my brothers. I would lead Salah. I would be the one that you know does the adhan at the masjid. And so it was just this, like my dad made us to be leaders from a young age. And he would allow us to make decisions that most adults would be uncomfortable making, you know, as children. So when it came time for a family vacation, he saw that he could get free tickets to Disney World. All he had to do was just sit in on a meeting. He's like, well, worst case scenario, I just sit in on a meeting because it's not like I'm going to buy anything. I don't even have money to pay them. So I did the research, and I think it was at this exact point when I became the kid in the family that handles all the family vacations, because I just knew how to find good deals. And I'll tell you more on this later. But we stayed at a Motel 6. We drove down to Florida, you know, from Dalton to Orlando, which is like a 10-hour drive. Even at the hotel, you know, because you can only fit like I think 2 people max per room because they're tiny rooms. You know, we bunked and everything, but it was the best vacation, most memorable vacation because like $600 all in, 8 of us went to Disney World, you know, tickets and hotels and everything, you know, the food, we figured out how to get the continental breakfast at the hotel. You take a couple of extra apples and bananas and granola bars and that'll keep you for the rest of the day. Like that's the life. That's the upbringing, you know?
Yeah. I love your story about your first $100 because any Arab kid has that first $100 and you get that mom or dad tax, that 20% or whatever it is. Tell me about your first $100.
Yeah, the story is when I was in 8th grade, I was in Mr. Kittle's class. This happened to be the same year where my dad found a gig to weld these parts for, I think it was Toyota. Toyota needed these parts. I think they were bushings that were installed in a certain model of Toyota vehicles. And there was a contract with one of the facilities in Dalton, and they needed someone to weld these bushings together. And so we had one of those ESOP old school welding machines. So every Saturday and Sunday, my dad would take us to the factory and we would weld these bushings together. And so the way it was, my dad would be on the welding machine. He'd have the mask on because obviously you're not supposed to look straight at it. And we all did as kids. So he would weld and then he would turn the machine and there would be someone with gloves that would remove the clamps. And it was always my oldest brother because he had the biggest hands because, you know, he's 11 and we're 7 and 8. So he obviously had stronger hands than us. And then you'd turn the rig a little bit more. Someone would remove the bushings and then shave the excess rubber off the bushings. And then finally someone had to dip them in water to cool off and then put them and add them to inventory. As this was happening, there's 4 of us around this big welding jig in the middle of a factory. I was 8 years old. There's this huge propane tank that powers the ESOP welding machine. There's MIG welders and TIG welders. This was a big MIG welding machine. And I think I bumped into the propane tank, or I was playing hide and seek with my brother. I forgot what was actually happening. But the propane tank fell and landed on my foot. And it swelled up to the size of a rugby ball. I couldn't fit my foot in my shoe. I had to remove all the shoelaces. And I was embarrassed to tell anyone. In fact, my 3rd grade teacher, you know, he called my dad and asked why I didn't go to school. And my dad said, oh, well, he's sick today. His foot is hurting. He's like, he can't really walk. This was an old school building where there were 2 floors and no elevators, and I'd have to walk upstairs to the elevator. And my 3rd grade teacher was like, no, bring Ali. I need him for math class. I'll pick him up. Don't worry. So my dad dropped me off at school, and he actually, my 3rd grade teacher would pick me up and walk me upstairs to sit in the back of the room to do the math tutoring. So, and I remember this distinctly because it was that same classroom where I had this kid named Lionel that bought these Yu-Gi-Oh cards from me. It was the 5 major cards of Exodia. And I sold him these 5 cards for $100. It was, I was so shocked that I could hold on to that much money, at once. And I still remember it so vividly, man. Like, I was downstairs in front of the auditorium, the gym in Morris Street School. It's since been gentrified and changed. And I remember handing him those cards. It was underneath the staircase. And then he handed me the $100 bill. And this was Franklin, 1995. Because I also pay attention to the numbers on the $100 bill. It was a 1995 issued $100 bill. And I just crumbled it up, put it in my hand, and then just put my hand in my pocket and held on to it for the entire rest of the day until I finally got home. And yeah, man, I mean, since then, actually the very next year I started an eBay store. The very next year. I think it's a level up, like in life and the video games, you level up. That 100 was a level up. A few years later, I was selling $10,000 a week on eBay, just drop shipping electronics. I didn't even have a bank account. All that money was going to my dad. So that was a big level up in my life for sure.
Yeah. Nice. And your mom took a percentage, I think.
Yeah. My mom charged me 20%. Actually, my younger brother was a business partner with me in that deal because I think he got like 2 of the cards and I got 3. That's how we were able to afford them.
Was that Ibrahim or was that somebody else?
That was Sam.
Sam, okay.
He's my younger brother. He's 11 months younger than me.
Because I do have to give a shout out to the karate attorney. When you said you were the smartest in the family, I think he'd get mad at me if I didn't challenge you on that. But we'll just
look, man. I don't think he'll challenge me on it, but I definitely won't fight him.
He is definitely athletic for sure. So you mentioned you grew up in a majority Mexican community, but obviously they're, in Dalton, Georgia, they're also, let's just say, the redneck experience. And one of those experiences you had, I think this is the first time you experienced hate, where the redneck pulled up next to you, spit out his tobacco, and said, "Go back to your country."
Go back to your country. Yeah.
What was your response?
Immigrant, dude. This redneck ass, missing teeth, hillbilly driving a beat up, rusty ass Chevy S10 in Dalton, Georgia, is spitting at me and my mom and telling us to go back to our country. Dude, you're lucky to even have us here. But at that point, I realized the lowest of the low, the scum of the earth that is white, still thinks they're superior to anyone else that's not white. That's actually Zionism, by the way. Yeah. That's the crux of Zionism. But in old hillbilly town Dalton, yeah, when they see a woman wearing a hijab, that person doesn't fit. And my sisters went through so much difficulty in high school when they wore the hijab. You got to imagine, man, my sister was bullied so much, she wouldn't even eat her lunch with the rest of the students. She'd grab the lunch and go eat in the bathroom. And you want to know why I'm very rough around the edges? Because I was 135 pounds, soaking wet as a senior in high school, and I had to look after my sister who was being bullied. And it didn't matter how much bigger, how much stronger everyone else was. No one would mess with me. It just didn't matter. I think it's that sort of, this person is going to give you a problem. Even though they don't look like it from a stature perspective, this person is going to give you a problem. And I think that was just a continuation. Like, you don't mess with my sister. You don't mess with the women in my life. You don't mess with the people that I love. And I will not. And that extends to everyone in Gaza too. There's nothing you can take from me that will keep me from speaking up for Palestinians, from protecting my family, from doing what is right. Nothing. And I learned at a very young age that they hate us. And they're not better than us. But when we're separated and we don't work with each other and we take advantage of each other, it becomes a problem. In Arabic, they say, الناس بس بوقفوا مع الحيط الواقف. People will only stand with you when they see that you've already been built. you know? And I think that's what I'm doing. It's like I do a lot of stuff, but I think what I'm really doing is showing people, look, I built this wall. Come join me. Let's strengthen it together. That's what I'm doing. Because once you've seen the ugly alternative, and by now you should all know that the alternative is ugly. You should all know that they will kill us at an instant just because of the way you look and the way that you worship. And yeah, I've been dealing with racism. That was just something that I remembered. You know, I'll tell you this. I was so used to racism, I thought it was normal. You know how when you only have one experience in life, you think that's normal?
Yep.
So in high school, I remember they would have these Letterman jackets they would give the football players. Okay. And if you played 2 years of football, you would get a Letterman jacket. And in high school, that was a really big deal.
Yep.
You know, so I played wide receiver. I wanted to be involved.
Especially in Georgia. Georgia, it's a big deal.
Especially in Dalton, Georgia, which has the longest winning streak out of any high school in Georgia.
Yep.
It was a really big deal. And it was a scandal when there was one kid that turned out to be ineligible to play Dalton high school football. And then he scored the majority of touchdowns for the year, which caused them to lose their winning streak. It's like, oh, scandal. But freshman year, high school, they know who I am. They know I'm not one of them. They know that this is the kid that always complains because the steak is wrapped in bacon and he wants a steak separate for him, because every Friday the kids would get steaks, all the football players. And it was bacon wrapped steak. And I'm like, look, I can't eat it. And they're like, well, just take the bacon off of it if you don't like it. I can't just take the bacon off of it, man. I got to eat halal food. What's that? Is that like kosher? Yeah, bro, this is the shit that I was dealing with. And so they knew that I was different, and they could tell when my mom would pick me up in like our 94 Nissan Pathfinder from high school, and that I didn't want the yard signs to go to my house. I don't want the cheerleaders to come to our house, which is just a concrete slab outside of our house with a garage in front of it so that we could sell electronics, you know, to people on nights and weekends. I don't want people to see that part of my life because I'm shy and embarrassed of it. I just want to feel like I'm part of American society. I just want to feel like I'm one of you. And I never felt it. I never got it. I wasn't one of you. And I'm not one of you. The only difference is now I'm proud to not be one of you. That's the difference. But in high school, there was this thing called, in summer program is called Bell Buckle, Tennessee. And there was a part of the new freshman incoming class where all the freshmen would line up at the bottom of the hill and they would run up to the top of the hill and they would play King of the Hill. And whoever won King of the Hill was the last man standing would be crowned the King of the Hill, and they'd get this ceremonial trophy and things like that. And guess who won King of the Hill?
You?
I did.
Yeah.
I was 108 pounds my freshman year. And even though the coach that I had, just the wide receiver coach, acknowledged it and stood up, was very happy because it's now it's like the offense gets to win instead of the defense. You know, it's just a little internal thing. The head coach and the assistant head coach did not give me the trophy. They instead gave it to the white kid whose parents donated more to the school's football program. And I convinced myself that maybe I stepped out of bounds a little bit and I was disqualified or whatever, but doesn't matter. Well, the following year, after 2 years of playing football, Ramadan was in football season in 2005 and 6, because I graduated 2008. So Ramadan 2005, 2006 was in football season, right? Now, obviously, it's closer to the middle of the summer, but by then it was in the fall. And so there would be 4 games where I would miss out, even though I would show up, I would dress up, but football games, Friday nights, high school's Friday, college Saturday, NFL Sunday. High school, Friday night, football game. Well, I'd dress up, I'd show up, I'd sit in the locker room, I'd do the prayers with all the Christians because that's what they did. I memorized the prayers so I could fit in. I'd give them the water bottles when they're tired. I agreed to not eat the steak and they wouldn't give me a replacement. So I'll just eat the green beans and whatever else is left. I did everything to try to fit in. And then when it came time to give everyone the Letterman jackets, they didn't give me one. And the head coach said, well, you didn't play the full season. But I showed up to every practice, even while I was fasting. I showed up to every game. I never missed anything that was required. And also, there were kids that were injured the whole year that never showed up, that they were in a cast, so they couldn't play and they couldn't participate. And they got a Letterman jacket, but I didn't. And I think that's when I really, really knew this is just racism. And that's when things started playing in my head, where I'm like, oh, that's why the defensive coach said, don't swear to God. I don't know what kind of God you're praying to. Just tell me the truth. Tell me what you're doing. That's why, even though they had this Catamount championship in the gym, this is going to sound like I'm bragging, bro. But for my weight, I was the strongest kid to ever go through the high school. I weighed 130 pounds. I was bench pressing 270, squatting 350, trap squat. And they had this Catamount power lifters on the board in the gym. And because I'm good at math, I could calculate what score I needed to get based on the major lifts, because I was very, very small and compact, and I wasn't properly nourished, right? I wasn't eating protein and paying attention. I just go to the gym and I would hurt myself just to prove a point. I want to be part of this. And the top score on the gym from the 90s, the most powerful athlete that came through that gym had a score of 12 or 1300. My score was over 3000 for my weight, because it didn't matter if you're 270 pounds as a high school freshman or a high school senior and you bench press 300. Technically, weight for pound, you're not as strong as the kid that's benching a little bit less, but is half your weight. They stopped that entire competition the year that I went through school. The year that I was, they stopped the entire, they've been doing it for 20 plus years. And they stopped the entire competition the year that I wanted to present and say, hey, I want to be number one because I want my name on that wall. And you start thinking about all these situations that come up and you're like, wait, that's not normal. They just hate you. They don't want you. They don't like you. They don't believe you have a right to exist. That's Dalton, Georgia. That's where I grew up.
I mean, I think, and I mean this in a good way, I think that is where you got the chip on your shoulder to say, you know what, screw everybody. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to succeed, even if you try to get in my way.
I agree with you, but I also realized that, in high school, in middle school, high school, college, I was only weak because I thought it was okay to not stand up for myself or to not get what's rightfully mine. Because we're different, because we're Muslim, because we're just outsiders, I kind of just allowed myself to get beat up, and not physically. And something I never, we're all black belts in the family. We could hold our own. I wouldn't, even though I was making a joke about karate attorney, I would not recommend that you test me toe to toe. I think it was just fear of, well, what will they say if I stand up and I do something? We were, bro, in 4th grade, I was number 1 in math, perfect score. They had these Pythagorean tests. And wallahi, there was another kid that tied me, the same scores. And there were 3 different competitions and we had the same exact score. And they gave him the first place trophy for every one of those and gave me the second place trophy. And we had the same score. And I'm like, what? What's happening? What? I guess all this was just normal at the time. You don't really think about it as a 4th grade student going to City Park Elementary. But after a while, you just realize, man, they're going to take advantage of you and they will run you over if you don't stand up for yourself. And then you finally realize at a certain point, oh, dude, you can't compete with the beast that I am. The shit that I went through, and now we're playing the same game, I'm going to annihilate you. All the stuff that I went through before I got to law school, and now you're you're relying on the fact that you have connections in your community or your dad was a lawyer, and you got this kid who grew up in the mud, who had a used tire explode in his face when he was 9 years old, who was dealing with propane tank injuries as a kid, who started multiple online stores, who every opportunity he thought he was going to succeed and fit in, he never had that opportunity. Now you gave me a license to practice law. I'm going to destroy you. And I think that's kind of where the personality, comes out a little bit. I can't hide that part, dude. If anything, I've toned it down a lot. I've toned it down, but that's where it comes from, man. And unfortunately, that's not something I can give to people on stage in 5, 10, 20 minutes, Yeah. It's like, but you'll see it over time and you'll understand it over time. And hopefully through my actions, you'll realize it's coming from a good place.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned college earlier. I'm going to skip over your bachelor's degree. That's okay. I'm going to just jump to law school, because did I read this right? You got so bored with law school the first year. You're like, you know what? I think I'm going to go get my MBA at the same time.
Yeah, that's part of it. But the other part of it is I like a good deal. And I discovered that they stopped charging you more for college once you exceed 12 credit hours. So in my second year in law school, I went and studied abroad. I studied abroad in Brazil, and it was for the law school. And then I started my business class, and I took 18 credit hours in the summer, 20 hours in the fall, and 21 in the spring. So I took 59 credit hours that year, and it allowed me to graduate with my JD and my MBA all in 3 years, because normally the JD alone is 3 years, and it didn't cost me anything extra. So that was the other reason why I always liked business, so I wanted to be involved, but I would not have done it if I had to stay in school for an extra year. So when I discovered that I could graduate at the same exact time with an extra MBA, it's like, yeah, that's a no-brainer deal. And then I ended up getting a TA position because I'm fluent in Spanish and Arabic. There was one business class that had English students and Spanish students. It was a very unique business class. And they hired me to be the graduate research assistant for it. So in the business school, I was the teacher's assistant, and they covered all of my tuition for law school and business school and gave me a stipend. And I was the only qualified student in the entire school. So yeah, it turned out to be a good deal.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it doesn't stop there. You were working 2 jobs at the same time, I believe, correct? And did you become an author at that point as well?
So I got published in immigration law. Yeah, you did your research. I like it. So, in law school, they want you to do mock trial, they want you to do moot court, and they want you to do law review, because those are like the prestigious things to do. The route that I took for being an entrepreneur, none of that stuff mattered. But I missed my application deadline for law review for my law school. So I applied for the National Black Law Student Association law review out of a school in New Orleans, because they had applications open, because I was in Brazil for study abroad. So I missed the application deadline. I came back, I applied to that one. I became a senior editor for the SRBLSA, Southern SRBLSA. It's Southern Region Black Law Student Association. Interestingly, I got accepted. I became a senior editor. I got published, and there was an event where they flew me down to Florida to meet with this, group of minority lawyers. And that's where I met this guy who had this torn up, tattered suit. It was like these little edges were coming apart at the seams. And really old black dude. He came up, did a presentation, and within the first couple minutes, just seemed like it was very slow and boring. And then he started talking, and he made a statement that, when I graduated law school, no one was hiring me. He was a black lawyer in the 1970s. And he said, and now I have Harvard graduates working for me. And I'm like, who is this guy? Turns out he was Willie Gary, the giant slayer. He's one of the most prominent injury lawyers in America. And he took down some big tobacco industries and had some of the biggest verdicts in history. And the exposure from doing law review for the Southern Region Black Law Student Association, just so I could prove myself to fit into law review. Took me to Florida, sat in the same room with this guy and said, oh, I want to do what this guy is doing. And his mentor, or his mentee, sorry, so he mentored this other kid. I ended up working with his mentee just a couple of years later.
Wow. Mashallah. So, I mean, it's kind of fascinating. You were doing immigration law. You're an author around immigration law, and then you decided to pivot. Not many attorneys can do that, or law students could even think about doing that, right?
I'll tell you very simply, because I know you got a lot of questions, man. Immigration, I decided it wasn't for me when I showed up to work one day and they asked me to spend, I think it was the entire summer, to review these applications, finish up the applications, reach out to all the clients, fill them out, push them through the court system. I finished them in 2 weeks. It was supposed to be like a 3-month job. And it was a much, much faster pace than everyone else that was there. And the immigration firm that I was working at was like, look, this is not how we operate. Like, that should have taken you like 3 months. We have to wait until the judge actually, sets up the hearing, because immigration is 50% law and 50% discretion. So if the judge doesn't like you, he can simply choose to not give you the green card, not give you the citizenship naturalization. And I didn't want a career that was too contingent on someone else. I wanted something where it's just me, let me do what I need to do. And I don't want a ceiling to my income potential. I'd already been working my whole life. I didn't want, and I never met a wealthy immigration lawyer, to be honest.
Well, maybe if you were an immigration attorney under the Trump administration, I think a lot of those paychecks went up, if I understood correctly.
It's not that, bro. It's, there's a rule that I live by, is to never sell to broke people. Broke financially is usually the people that don't have other resources and other opportunities. The immigration population, the foreigner population, the immigrant population in America, those arguably have the least resources, and even if I spent unlimited amount of hours, first, I don't think I would have been able to reach the financial freedom that I wanted. But second, I don't know if I would feel good about it. Like, I don't know if I'd want to take money from the indigent communities that actually need the help. I'd rather be the one that takes money from massive insurance companies and then redistributes it to my people. So that's just kind of how it worked out.
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit, you were nominated for a 40 under 40 award in Georgia, in the state of Georgia.
Georgia State University.
Oh, Georgia State University. And in comes the hate, because you were speaking up for Palestine. I believe about 100 lawyers wrote a letter calling you anti-Semitic and unworthy of the award. And I also think you got several text messages, which I think you shared on social media, with people sort of spewing hate your way. At that very moment, what was the first thought in your mind when you heard about this?
I didn't care. Didn't matter. I don't need anyone to tell me that I'm legitimate or that I'm credible. I don't need any organization or any person to tell me why I'm qualified to speak or not qualified. But just to give you some context, I've been doing CEO Lawyer Summits since 2019. I've been coaching and teaching lawyers. I have programs that hundreds of lawyers have successfully gone through, and I've built multiple 6, 7, and 8-figure firms nationwide. This is just like a side quest. I like doing it. I love business so much. I'm looking for other things to do. I want to talk business with other lawyers. 80% of those lawyers that have bought tickets to my events, that have come to my programs, that have come to my coaching events, that have gone to my masterminds, 80% of them have canceled me, have decided to block me, have boycotted my events, have posted about, oh, don't deal with this person, he's anti-Semitic or whatever. And deeper than that, Israelis have seen, after it's been posted, I've been doxxed a couple of times, they started doing waves of 1-star reviews on all my pages, waves of negative content on Yelp, Google, Facebook, everywhere. Calling my office, calling my intake line, and bombarding all of our phones and telling people, hey, telling my intake people, hey, why are you working for this firm? He hates Jews and blah, blah, blah. Creating this fake Google reviews that say, literally, they would say, we called this office for help after an accident, but when he found out we were Jewish, he said, I'm not going to represent you and that he doesn't like Jews. Just absolute craziness. And I'm like, yo, this is what happens when you start speaking up against Zionism. They want to just play the victim card. And bro, it infuriated me. And so I took that anger and shoved it back down their throats and decided, you know what, this year's summit, I'm going to donate every single dollar of ticket sales back to Gaza. And inshallah, God willing, it's going to be the most successful event. But you know what's the best thing about it? Not a single fucking Zionist is going to be in the audience. I don't know if we can.
No, you're good. I was going to say, I think that was the big one, is you have a no Zionist policy for that conference.
Yeah, bro, there's not going to be a single Zionist here. I want as many Arab and Muslim lawyers to show up to my event. If you can't afford a ticket, I will give it to you for free. But I want more successful people in this room together. We can take over the legal industry. The medical industry is very hard. The pharmaceutical industry, good luck. The insurance industry, we don't deal with it. But the legal industry, we can own this one, guys. We can. And if there's 50 more people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing nationwide, we can consolidate and take over. And we're not going to sell the firm. Definitely not to a PE venture capitalist firm that's Zionist backed. If you want to hurt people that are hurting you, you have to have financial power. That's the only thing that they respect. That and weaponry, and we're not there yet. Yeah. Financial power. That's what you need. You need to have the ability to change someone's entire social status and economic status from your skills.
Yeah.
And if you do that, amplified at a national level, they're going to respect you.
I think even CARE jumped in to put out a memo about how ridiculous the accusations were towards you, right?
So I know I go off on tangents here, but it's just for the context for your audience. You know, I've been doing all these events for many, many years. So it was more the fact that all these people were pretending to be my friends and now doxing me, now attacking me, now doing all these negative things. I'm like, yo, I built your firm, bro. Like I've sent you dozens of cases. There were Zionist lawyers that refused to pay me my referral fee after I referred the client to them. Bro, that's illegal. You're stealing my money. So it got really, really bad. So I didn't care about it 40 under 40. But the way that I got it is what makes me very proud. And it makes me proud because my community had my back. When I posted about it on social media, I said, hey guys, apparently there's 100 lawyers, judges, and professors that want to take this award away from me. And, you know, this is what happens when you stand up for Palestine. And someone saw it and decided to create a website that says, we stand with Ali. And we're going to sign this letter. Everyone signed this letter, send it to the president of Georgia State University. He circulated it on all the aunties and uncles groups on WhatsApp. Thousands and thousands of people signed this letter. Georgia State University Alumni Association called me the following week and said, hey, and I was at the gym. I was working out at Crunch Fitness. I was between sets. I looked at the phone number. I was like, let me answer it. Like, hey, so-and-so with Georgia State. We just want to let you know that we see all the negative things about you online, and we did receive a lot of these letters, but we want you to know that it's the position for Georgia State University that we are still going to extend the award because nothing has changed. You still earned it. I'm like, well, I really appreciate that. And so the way that it happened, my community really had my back. And to be honest, man, and I really want to express this sincerely. I have not been as active, much less proactive, with the Arab and Muslim community prior to last year, 2023, 2024. And it's because, to be completely honest, I feel more connected to the Latin American community. Because I grew up in Dalton, and 18, 19 years of my life, the majority of my life, I grew up around Mexicans. I lived in Mexico. I speak Spanish better than Arabic. I love Mexican food, Mexican culture, everything. We really, really connect on a deep level. I love it. I really do. Wallahi, I feel more comfortable in Mexico than I do in Arab countries. I feel more comfortable. Yeah. And I really enjoy it. So the majority of my law firm is Hispanic. The majority of my clients are Hispanic. The advertisements that I do are in Spanish. This is the community that I grew up in. These are my people. And I also, and this is the part that I wanted to get to, I felt that the Arab community was just so much harder to work with, and that they always wanted to negotiate. They always wanted to take advantage. They want a nickel and dime. And I made the conscious decision for the first 6-7 years of my practice to not work with as many Arabs proactively. That was a mistake, because that's the community that stood up with me. That's the community that had my back. Not the Latin American community, not the Black community, not anyone else. It was the Arab and Muslim community that was like, this man is not going to exchange his values for money or fame or anything else. This has not changed my perspective on Arabs being difficult, okay? But it has changed my mindset towards, even if they are difficult and they need the education, they need to understand, like, even if I have to have the conversation with every single Arab and Muslim client personally, that, hey, I'm the CEO of the company. I'm not the one that's going to answer the phone calls, draft the letters, talk to the insurance adjusters. Like, there's people for that. Even if I have to go through that education process with every single person, it's okay. It's worth doing it because this is my community and these are my people. It's worth doing it even if it means I'm going to make less money. I will go out of my way now to work with the Arabs and Muslims, even if it's an inferior product and it costs more, because that's the community that stood with me and that's my people. So that's what the 40 Under 40 award did for me. And that's why I got it right here.
There you go. Mabruk.
Yeah. So alhamdulillah, bro. It means a lot because of how I achieved it, not because of the award itself.
Right on. Right on. And I appreciate that. And I think that means a lot. And I think, I really hope that message resonates with our community, that we do have to support each other and have each other's backs. I do want to just say, just for a funny point, you are one of the many now that made being a part of Canary Mission a cool thing. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, is that a thing now?
That's a thing now. So
we should create a new website called the Canary Club.
We should. You know what?
Hold on, let me see if that link is available. It's available.
If you get that live on the podcast, that would be sick.
Oh no, someone already has it. It's Tiki's Rooftop Lounge.
We could play with it a little bit. We could figure out something.
By the way, I'm gonna throw a couple of pieces of business advice out here, specifically when it comes to branding. Okay, if you don't have a name, like an actual first name or last name that's memorable, that's easy on the tongue, that sounds luxurious, that maybe sounds a little bit European or Western, don't use that as the name for your brand. It's okay to create a different brand that's separate from your name. My law firm is actually called Ali Awad Law. And that was always a mouthful. It's like, yeah, this is so-and-so with Ali Awad Law. And I was thinking, like, what's a brand name that I can use? So I in 2016, I wanted to become Instagram famous. So I started searching all these usernames. One of them was Power Moves. And I wanted to create a page all about power moves, right? And it's like, oh, I just did this $4,000 sale and then I had lunch delivered to my office. Oh, that's a power move. In the context of being 26 years old, that was a cool thing, But I stumbled upon the name CEO Lawyer. And here is where the business lesson is. If you find a brand name that is available, the first thing that you do is scoop up the website. You get the domain name and you get variations of the name. So you get CEOlawyer.com, you get theCEOlawyer.com. You reserve all the social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, all of them. And you reserve the variations of those as well. Lastly, create a logo. My CEO Lawyer logo that I have here cost me $5 to make. I got it on, I don't know if it was Fiverr or something else, a virtual staff that did it overseas. And I trademarked it as soon as I could. Because once you've decided on a brand, now you're going to go all in on it. And you're going to make everything kind of attached to that brand. And you invest everything behind it. So don't wait until you get the website and then someone scoops up the Facebook name from under you or the Instagram name or the YouTube channel from under you. And build a brand. First, identify a name, secure all of the domains and the social media handles, and make that the only thing that you talk about, your brand, because that's what people are going to remember you by. And if you don't have a name that's memorable, like McDonald's, the guys that own McDonald's, the McDonald's brothers, the reason that Ray Kroc decided to steal that company from them is because he liked the McDonald's name. He didn't want people going to Croc's Burger. Like, what a crock of shit. I don't want that. That's the story, right?
Yeah.
And so, and now today, we all don't eat McDonald's and we all boycott McDonald's despite their name. But the brand itself is what's memorable. And you can make it memorable. Just make sure that it's protected.
So I don't think you're going to be remembered for the brand CEO lawyer. I think you're going to be remembered for one of the first to build a Muslim hospital in the U.S. So I'd like you to talk about that. And there is not a Muslim hospital in the U.S. currently, correct?
Not a full-fledged hospital. I think there's like clinics in Chicago, I think, or Michigan.
Okay.
And it's a series of clinics that work together, but not like a full. In talking to doctors about this mission, the biggest differentiator is the research aspect of it. So the ability to do high-level surgeries and for people to want to fly in and, you know, get operated on there, but also the research wing of your hospital. So what are some of the medicinal and technological advances that the hospital has made under, you know, this new program? And so it really does take a lot of money because you want to turn it into a research center as well, not just like a surgery suite or trauma center. And again, the hospital thing is because you see Christian hospitals, Catholic hospitals, Jewish hospitals everywhere, and you don't see Muslim hospitals. Funny enough, there's at least 10, 15% of the entire population of doctors are Muslim. So I think we're woefully underrepresented in terms of the hospital naming. But I think it's also important from a psychological sense that the perception of Muslims, I think, will likely get elevated and enhanced when people can associate, you know, free medical care, taking care of the community with Muslims. And I think that's something that we haven't really cared about much because we're still pretty new to America. So we're talking about just in general, you know, Arabs and Muslims are still fairly new to America. Chinese people, Japanese people, Mexicans, especially Black people, all of them have gone through their own series of being railroaded by America, where they were the scapegoats, where they were the most hated group of people. They were the people that were disenfranchised, that were manipulated, killed, wrongfully imprisoned. There's different, like historically, there's been different groups of people that have gone through that and they overcame it. And Arabs and Muslims are going through that now. It's our turn, guys. What are we going to do about it? And I think the hospital is one of those kind of BHAGs, you know, the big, hairy, audacious goal, which kind of aligns all of these things together. And inshallah, in pursuit of that goal, I think I'm going to meet with a lot of doctors, professionals, lawyers that probably have the same sort of vision, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. And we have to remember there are many Muslims that are running these hospitals that these hospitals rely on.
Yeah.
So if we gave them another option and we could get the best minds together, I think that would be powerful. How do we support this idea of a Muslim hospital? Or are you ready to talk about the plan in detail or just in general?
No, I put that out there as my goal. It's a big goal.
Okay.
Look, to be honest, I'm not breaking ground on a hospital, you know, anytime soon. I just saw that Arthur Blank, who owns the Falcons and Atlanta United, right here in Atlanta, his hospital just had the grand opening here in Atlanta, and he donated $200 million to build the hospital. Now, apart from that, he's probably worth $4 to $6 billion, depending on where you look. He also, I think, owns Home Depot, a couple other really, you know, big companies. And dude's probably like 80 years old. To me, the fastest way to achieve that goal would be to increase my net worth so that I have the ability to spend $200 million. But if I just do it by myself, I don't think I can actually accomplish the goal. I have to do it with a lot of people. And, you know, they say if you go by yourself, you'll go fast. But if you go with a team, you'll go far. So I think the best way, if anyone is interested in supporting this goal, is to support me. Support my law firm. If you have a personal injury case, you have a car accident or something, you need help, shoot me a message. I respond to my DMs. If you're a personal injury lawyer, come to my event. Like, work with me. And I promise you, I will do whatever it takes to make you feel that this was a great investment and a great return on your money, whatever time investment that you make. But the end goal is I have to build at least hundreds of millions of dollars in excess capital to be able to make this happen. I think the easy part will be getting the doctors. Yeah. The easy part will be to get the talent. I think the hard part will be the real estate, the zoning, the approval from the city. And that requires a lot more connections. It requires money. It requires a lot of greasing of the palms. It just requires a lot of resources. And so the goal for me is to acquire those resources, because I don't need more cars. You know, I don't need out of the house. I don't need more stuff. I don't need more watches. I mean, I have a collection. I don't even wear it. You know, I feel more comfortable just in a $5 t-shirt and my pajama pants working from home. Like that's how I function. But that's a really big one. You know, the hospital is a really big one. And if it costs Arthur Blank $200 million, it's probably going to cost me $400. So that's it, man. That's what I want to do.
So I don't know how strong your relationship is with CARE, but I'm sure CARE, I know it's a different world, but I know they have the context that could possibly help you. So that's something to consider too.
I'm emceeing the gala for CARE. I think it's a couple days. And to be honest, I've become a lot more involved with the National Association of Muslim Lawyers, the CARE. And an example is also because I've noticed that it's hard for people to spend money. One thing that I will say for anyone that listens to this podcast or anyone that's out there, if you are a personal injury lawyer and you would like to level up your personal injury practice, and if you came specifically from the Sumud podcast, if you go to the CEO Lawyer Bootcamp website, I will give you whatever is on there for free. Those are programs that we sell for $5,000, $10,000, because I know you're not going to have Zionists listening to this.
Actually, that's where a lot of our hate comes from. But yeah.
Hey, man, you know, hate is just misguided love.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants to level up their practice and wants to learn personal injury, I want to help you. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I don't need you to spend money on this program, but I do need you to take it seriously, because people pay a lot of money for it and they've leveled up their firms and they've grown a lot. And if I could get this in the hands of hundreds of people, that's what I'm going to do. So inshallah, I'm going to do it at the National Association of Muslim Lawyers conference that's coming up. All the lawyers that are there, I'm going to, give them the program and teach them the game. And I'm trying to get as many people to show up to my summit as well. Alhamdulillah, man, we've had actually a lot of lawyers donate tickets, man. It's, you don't lose much when you're losing a negative, right?
Yeah.
People that hate you, people that don't respect you, people that don't believe you have a right to exist, losing those people from your life is actually a positive. But it's opened up the opportunity for so much better. And, I know you didn't ask this, man, but if anyone is wondering whether it's worth it to speak up for Palestine, to stand up for your rights, even if you don't feel that it's the right move now, you'll eventually realize it. I just hope that you don't wait too long. I hope that you understand that the life that you have is not worth living if you're in constant fear from people that hate you, people that don't believe that you have a right to exist. That's not a life worth living. And as Palestinians have shown us, as the Lebanese have shown us, it's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. And if you're scared and you don't know whether you should speak up or say something, I'm not telling you to stand up and speak up and risk everything that you've possibly built. What I'm saying is, think about the decisions that you made to get to this point. And if you made the conscious decision to work underneath someone or to work in an industry where you're too scared to speak up, then you need to change that. At least be active in the change of your current circumstances if you can't speak up. Alhamdulillah, I created a situation, and it's only because of God's blessing. And I'm very lucky because of my parents. They raised me right. I have 3 amazing brothers, 2 sisters, and my wife. I would kill for these people. And Alhamdulillah, because I have that, I built a system where I'm not scared to speak up. And it's almost like, because I did it strategically, it's almost like you're not going to hurt me. I already built the mental fortitude and the discipline and the ability to survive no matter what you do. So if you're in that situation, you're scared to speak up, you don't have to speak up, but you do have to change the circumstance that you're in so that you're never worried about speaking up in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It reminds me of the Mahmoud Darwish quote: If you live free, or die like the trees standing up." And that's exactly what you're saying. But you're just saying be a little more strategic about it and put yourself in the position where you can do that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
He who controls your paycheck controls you.
Right.
In business, he who controls your marketing controls you.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of professionals lose their business contacts and lose a lot of their income because they relied too much on referrals from people that didn't necessarily like them.
Yep.
And so they created a situation where they're not self-sustaining.
Speaking of unpopular types of speaking out, both you and I formerly endorsed Jill Stein. And I think you said something to the extent of, if you don't believe I have the right to exist, then you damn sure don't have the right to my vote.
Oh, that's a good quote.
Yeah. See, we got
Yeah.
you. We got you. So talk about your vote for Jill Stein. And I think there was one other one where I read a while ago. A vote for Jill Stein means a vote for Jill Stein, not for Donald Trump, which a lot of people try to position it as. But can you talk about your thinking about that, or your logic?
My logic is that there's nothing worse than genocide. My logic is that the ethnic extermination of an entire group of people should be a red line. My logic is that if you vote for the same people, the same administration that carried out this genocide, that are continuing to kill people in Palestine and Lebanon, that are bombing Syria, that have completely destroyed the entire Middle East, that are actively making Muslims the enemy when it's the most peaceful religion in the world, and you still make the decision to vote for them, you're complicit. You are no worse or no better than the Zionists that are actually pressing the buttons. Difference is you're pressing the button on the ballot box instead of on the missile that's being sent.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. And Kamala is not our friend. Biden is not our friend. And the Democrats are the nastiest people I've ever seen. At least Republicans are your enemy in your face. Democrats are your enemy behind your back. And they're the ones that are putting pressure on Trump through legal actions, through all these smear campaigns to keep him from getting any sort of, real traction. They're the ones that have been in control in the United States for the majority of the past 2 decades. They're the ones that have always been primarily AIPAC endorsed. They're the ones that pretend like they have a right to your vote. Democrats are the ones that believe Black people, Arabs, Hispanics, any foreigners have a right to their vote. The only difference is they're not your enemy in your face. They're your enemy behind your back. At least Republicans are outright racist in your face. I can get along with that. At least you're telling me that you're racist. Hey, man, look, I get it. I hate Arabs too. What you talking about? No, I'm just kidding. But at least you know the enemy that you're dealing with Republicans. Democrats are the enemy you don't know. And these are not people that you could trust. They're definitely not people that should have your vote. And it seems like a very, very low standard. It seems like you should really be able to find any sort of candidate that could beat Trump, right? Like look at who you're propping up. This is the person that half of America wants as president. Trump is not good for Arabs and Muslims and foreigners and anyone who's not a rich white man. He's not.
Yeah.
But even the poorest white people still think they're better than the best Arabs and the best Muslims and the best Hispanic people. Even the lowest of the low still think they're superior being than you. So those are your 2 choices. And then comes Jill Stein. Obviously, there's a lot of Green Party candidates, but Jill Stein is the only one that has a viable path to the White House. I think the Green Party should consolidate, and especially with Cornel West and any other Green Party candidates, they should all put their votes together and consolidate behind Jill Stein because she's the one, her and Butch Ware have the highest likelihood of success to the White House. And I think our goal is just to get 5% of the popular vote, just so we can unlock federal funding. I don't really think there's a chance that Jill can win this election cycle. But change takes time. And the point is that they have to respect our vote and they have to respect our existence. And if you're just throwing your vote away by not showing up at all, which is the worst decision that you can make, is just sit on the sidelines, I would rather you vote for Trump than to not vote at all. I would rather you show that the Arab and Muslim vote cannot go to Democrats unless they support our right to exist, that they agree to a two-state solution of the 1967 borders, that they stop the indiscriminate bombing of Lebanon and Syria and Palestine and Yemen. I mean, have you seen the videos, man? We can't fathom it. We can't comprehend the level of destruction. Every day there's children with limbs blown off and their heads completely exploded from their bodies and their brain matter just sticking out and their guts spewing out to the side and their moms crying over their sons and their husbands. And you still want to vote for the person that carried out all of these atrocities? At the very least, Dr. Jill Stein shows up to the masjid and speaks with the Muslim community. At least Dr. Jill Stein, who's actually a Jewish woman, still stands up against Zionism. Unlike the Democratic National Convention that did not allow a single Arab or Muslim to speak on stage. These are not your friends. And I'm not saying that Democrats will never be the party that we'll support, but they are definitely not the party that we can support now. That is not the party that we could support now. They carried out the genocide and there should be consequences. And the least that you can do is not vote for Kamala Harris. That's the very least that you can do. I'm not saying you got to go and create a social media channel and start posting videos and do all. You don't have to do any of that, dude. Just vote for someone else, please.
Yeah. So just a few more questions, but fun fact: we did ask Jill Stein before she chose Bush Ware, would you run with Dr. West? And she said absolutely yes, she would. I don't know if you know that or not, but she did throw that out there.
And he didn't want it.
I never asked him that question. Hopefully we're going to have him on pretty soon, but no, she was completely open and transparent. She would welcome him. And I think that's a formidable ticket right there. Honestly, if that were to happen, but maybe next time.
Look, there has to be consequences for Biden administration's actions. There have to be consequences.
Yeah.
We can't proceed as just business as usual. We can't. And I would love to see Stein West ticket. I think that would be a very powerful ticket. I think West has more rapport and respect with the Black community than Butch does. But this is the best viable candidate that we have right now. And I'm proud to support Jill Stein and Butch Ware for president and vice president.
Yeah. Likewise, I got to say though, Cornell, he has some fire to him when he speaks. If you remember at ArabCon, he knows how to deliver a speech. He was brilliant.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I love the passion and the energy that he brings too. It's very, very different from Jill's personality.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about them like they're just our buddies? Like, oh yeah, Jill's cool, man. Text her the other day. Yeah.
Actually, that's interesting. She is cool and she will text you. That's the difference. She will build those relationships.
Yeah, I know, man. I don't know. I never felt like I'm, supposed to be talking to presidents or presidential candidates, I guess.
Well, you are. So my last few questions is I'm actually going to divide it up for you because I want you to speak to the Palestinians in Palestine, in Gaza, in the West Bank, all over within that area. What's your message for those kids? Because invariably, you know that somebody's going to see a clip and share a clip of what you're going to say. What is your message to them?
My message to all Palestinians is, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah, inna Allaha ma'a as-sabirin. My message is, oh, you who believe, spend your time in prayer and prostration. Worship God because he is the only one that we can rely on. And we've seen it over and over again. The faith that the Palestinians have is, inshallah, going to be the reason why the Ummah unifies and comes together. Because we see with your destroyed mosque that you're still going to Friday prayer. We see that the masjid that was bombed with over 100 people in it was at 5 a.m. during Fajr prayer. We see the moms who have 4 children all wiped out in one bombing still say, Alhamdulillah, kullu wuladi shuhada. Thank God, all of my children are martyrs, and God willing, they're going to be accepted into paradise. There's a lot of us that support you, and there's a lot of us that will do anything for the suffering to end. And I want to say that we're sorry that we're not stronger. We're sorry that we are afraid, and we're sorry that we are cowards. We're sorry that we couldn't do better. We're sorry that the best that we can do is post on social media. We're sorry that you somehow feel proud that us speaking up for Palestine is something to be proud about, instead of us having the power as in to make it stop. We're sorry that we have let so much suffering happen, and we have the power collectively as an ummah to make a difference. But we don't want to risk our comfort. We don't want to change the status quo. We are scared when we shouldn't be scared. We're never going to forget how Palestinians, how Lebanese, how the Yemenis, how the Syrians could have very easily been us. And may Allah accept you into the highest levels of paradise, and to end your suffering, and for you all to be the catalyst for change on a global level, inshallah.
Inshallah. I think I'm going to just leave it there, if that's okay with you. It's been a pleasure, an honor to meet you in person. Great conversation. I hope you will come back and let us know how we can support you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, bro. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think the first time people probably heard me or saw me was maybe at ArabCon and got a different perspective. But I think it was important for people to understand that we have no respect, and especially in the West, because we have no financial power. You know, if you're a successful business person, entrepreneur, or professional, don't sell your business. Don't work with other Zionists. Go out of your way to work with other Arabs and Muslims that will support you, that will stand up for you. And my only wish is that you figure it out before it's too late.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bro. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. All about humanity, so this right here for everyone. Uplift, amplify, empower everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. Listen, stay tuned, cause it's time for Sumud.